Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. News that was refused to use everywhere. There's not a whole lot of news that's really any unique, different news unless you dig for it. But there are news headlines that we're talking about. We talked about, will Congress merge the Israeli military into our system? We believe the answer is yes. We don't want it to happen. We, the people, better stand up and stop it. But it's out of the news, but moving stealthily forward in many places. And I'm telling you right now, it's closer than you think it is, folks. Don't dismiss it and think it's not a serious issue. Why hasn't the Iran war caused fuel prices to rise? Because we have so many levers to stop it, but eventually we're going to run out of options. And if we're not very careful, it will create an energy worldwide crisis. And you will not get products and services because we depend on oil, depend on coal, depend on trains and diesel and everything else to get things to us. And it will have an impact as oil prices climb as we continue to bomb. The war's on again, folks. On again, off again. It's on, baby. And the United States conducted additional military strikes. And now we're basically attacking bridges and everything else. But remember, that's infrastructure that will probably be somehow manipulated, baited into rebuilding with our tax dollars as we continue to rebuild nations. We need to reject nation building, but we're causing massive destruction. And to what end? What are we going to accomplish? We won't gain the Straits of Hormuz control again. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham dies. Anybody that is for the mainstream says don't speculate. It's all good. It's all clean and good. But everybody else is going, whoa, that's a very weird timing. Yeah, very weird timing because he came back from a war zone. Did Russia take him out? Who knows? He just got back from Ukraine. Did he die under weird circumstances? What about Mitch McConnell? Got this newspaper article that he appears with like he was kidnapped, Doctor. Why would you have a newspaper article like that and show it in that weird way? You do that when they don't want you to talk or they don't want you to give any messages out, so they want to make sure they can prove you're alive, but yet they don't want you to get any word out about anything. Why wouldn't he just release one of his phone calls? They say he's sitting up, talking, laughing, engaged in his work from his hospital bed. Why don't they have, say, a Rand Paul or somebody go into Mitch McConnell's, hospital room and do a video and say, hey, how's it going, Mitch? It's Rand, and, we're fellow senators here. I wanted to just check in on you, buddy. Or why didn't they have him jump on a news show if he's really as lively as they wanted you to believe? What gives with this, Doctor? It's very weird. Well,
with AI today, it's just astounding to me, some of the Bravo Sierra that's being broadcast as, fact, as, oh, yeah, people, you watch it with your own eyes, you guys. This is exactly... in fact, just a kind of a little humorous one, sad humorous, I guess. You probably saw that buffalo that, in fact, I don't know how far away we were from that when it actually happened, when that fellow got head butted with the buffalo and got tossed and everything brutal. Busted him Grandpa. Up pretty bad. I saw one the other day that it showed him chasing the buffalo around and kicking it in the butt and flipping it over. AI is doing, and you say, oh yeah, okay, right, it's humorous, it's fine. But with AI, they can almost make anything look like it's real. People say, I saw it with my own eyes. It was on a video. I mean, it's the
but they've been doing that since we went to the moon, buddy.
yeah. There's another.
And now it's just getting the deep fakes are getting more and more and more real. There's no question about it. And the problem is we don't know the truth, and why they did that weird thing with with Mitch McConnell is strange, though. I mean, don't you just show a newspaper like that when you're a hostage? And when else is that done?
It honestly is, like you say, nothing's confirmed until it's been denied. And I just think there's so many ways it could be. I mean, you could correct it. Hey, look, it's...
But can you show me a time when they use a newspaper with a person like that that's not a kidnap and or hostage situation that you can think of?
I can't think of a time.
So why would they let that image go out there, though? What's the message? And so you say, don't worry about Mitch McConnell. He's fine. Don't worry about Lindsey Graham. Everything is on the up and up. And then Trump's literally saying, hey, if you assassinate me, I'll ratchet up the war. We've already got a plan in place. Don't you dare. There's more here than meets the eye, folks. And I don't know what it is, but I'm just telling you all those things together. You think it's nothing, and you're being punked. I'm telling you right now. Now they're also working in the Senate. This isn't in the news much. But will Congress pass an anti-Semitic law? And if they merge our military with Israel, they will pass an anti-Semitic law. They'll say, hey, you cannot criticize. I mean, this is beyond a partner now, right?
Well, it's a complete facade. It's a charade. And what's really interesting is back in May of 2024, if I recall correctly, the House overwhelmingly passed an anti-Semitic law. And here's the bottom line. Here's the bottom line. It targets speaking ill of the modern state of Israel. Now, if you pass a law that says, oh, you can't speak ill of Russia or of France or of New Guinea or whatever, I mean, what a law. But this kind of thing, the whole definitional terms of anti-Semitism seems to it basically comes out of the Anti-Defamation League of this idea that somehow the Jewish people are bigger target than anybody else. Here's the problem. It's not a problem. The whole thing, there's religious discrimination. There's religious violence. More Christians have been killed in America in recent times than have Jewish people for religious reasons. I mean, you think of that one in the Roman
but we're not
church
going to talk about that because, see, we have this. It reminds me of all the different murderous leaders many years ago. You know, you had, what is it, Mao Zedong or whatever his name is. You had the Hitler. You had, what's his name, Stalin. You had several, Holodomor. But for some reason, the World War II German Hitler thing is like dwarfs everything else. Even though the murders were greater in these other cases, this dwarfs it, right? From a Pol Pot's to on down. And that one's elevated above the rest. And it's the same thing here. I don't want to speak ill of Israel, but I want to say this. We need to maintain our sovereignty, and we don't need to protect or favor Israel either.
Well, here's the deal. This stuff we've talked about earlier in the show about this merging with the modern state of Israel, that de facto is anti-Semitism in most people's minds. And the way this law is being written, this bill, I think it's H.R. 9211 sticks in my mind. It's like 47 pages long, and you will be deplatformed if for some reason somebody, I mean, I've been deplatformed. YouTube did me, for example, when, you know, all the talk about the COVID con was going on, and everything we talked about is proven out. It was against the establishment view. But here's the deal. I'm gone. I'm off of YouTube. And you start talking about some people that are saying, well, if we merge with the modern state of Israel, this is concerning because of the sovereignty of the nation. Stuff like we've just been talking about. And that's how this will be
they'll say you're anti-Semitic. How dare you? Meanwhile, you have congressmen and senators and even Glenn Beck trying to hold dual citizenship. Where's your allegiance to when that happens? I don't know why we're allowing that to happen either. To me, it's criminal. I don't believe we got to have dual citizens of any kind. You're either a citizen of America and no other, or you're not.
Well, everything about dual citizenship is the antithesis of the founder's position. In fact, we can go back and
And that's why I say we need to double down. You're either an American citizen or you're not, but you're not going to be a citizen of any other country if you are.
But here's the bigger problem. All of these legislators that hold dual citizenship, the Savior said it best, no man can serve two masters. He'll love the one and despise the other. Hold to the one, that stuff, the Savior talked about that, and it's a very succinct thing. You cannot serve two masters. And if you're in the legislature, some political position, let's say you're a Glenn Beck that's broadcasting every day, oh, that Israel, ain't they good? But of course, a lot of people don't have dual citizenship, like Sean Hannity and Chuck and Buck and all those. Oh no, Chuck, what's his name? Anyway, those guys the big legacy media kind, the Fox News people, they might as well have other citizenship. The biases that they show, but this idea that you can serve in the Congress and have dual citizenship, how can you serve two masters? Oh, well, I put on my American hat when I come in the Capitol building, but when I'm on the news and when I'm out on the street and when I'm campaigning,
what about protecting America from enemies, foreign and domestic? And that oath you take, that oath doesn't relate to the building. That oath relates to your commitment 24/7.
Absolutely. And here's the deal. The Naturalization Act of 1795 unequivocally requires that someone coming in and accepting U.S. citizenship, and there's a whole process that's outlined in there, must renounce all loyalty to all others, princes, potentates, nations. Anything that you previously held has to be renounced. That was the original intent of the American founding fathers. I think it's absurd that we have any dual citizenship, particularly in legislative positions, but that's the way we're running.
We've obliterated that. That's for sure. The real question, though, is do constitutions matter? And I would say there's a resounding yes, they do, but they have to matter more than just on paper. They have to matter in the hearts of the American people. Dr. Bradley responds in seconds.
This is a battle between truth and deceit, a battle between forces that would enslave this country in darkness, and between a media that wants to present you with the truth. We are being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. 90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in fact.
TheEpochTimes.com.
Every day, Americans are told to hate each other while the people in power keep winning. But what if there's another path? What if Americans could come together and take this country back peacefully before it's too late? The Democrat murder of America, demagoguery in the first degree, exposes the corruption, manipulation, government failures, and political games pushing Americans further apart while our country slips deeper into crisis. Inside, you'll discover powerful insights into political hypocrisy, media bias, government overreach, the national debt crisis, and the growing culture of division destroying trust in America. More importantly, this book offers a call for peaceful action, accountability, unity, and restoring the values that once made this nation strong. If you're frustrated with the direction of this country and looking for answers outside the mainstream narrative, this book was written for you. Join fellow Americans who still believe this nation is worth fighting for. Available now at murderofamerica.com.
Okay, so are constitutions important? This question comes up constantly. I get text messages, emails, I get conversations on the phone, I read the news, and from the highest office in this nation, apparently it's a widely held position that they are not important. They just simply are pieces of paper. I don't know if they quite equate it to toilet paper at this position, but these parchment papers are they're not chains that are holding anybody down. And I hear patriots, quote unquote patriots, claim to be patriots, wave the flag, march in parades, go to fireworks.
Well, they just don't
displays.
understand. You got to have You got to have the constitutional principles in the hearts and minds of every American to demand and insist. The founders said you have a republic if you can keep it. In other words, the Constitution, unless it's written on the fleshy tablets of our hearts, unless we demand and insist that it be upheld, that the checks and balances are constantly focused on. And okay, what we want to do is set aside the Constitution when it's crisis. We want to set aside the Constitution when it's, quote, expedient. And that is the destruction of the country, Doctor.
Well, what we have is the most monumental things, and little tiny things too, but monumental things that are over the top important, that we're setting aside the Constitution because of expediency. Oh, the president had to do that. Are you kidding me? So we're going to allow a tyranny to descend upon us because you decided it was important. And impeachment was there for a reason. It's kind of a scarecrow, according to Jefferson.
Well, now they're talking about impeaching Donald again.
Well, how about for war power stuff? I mean, think about this. I mean, you do it over stuff like, Bill Clinton and the intern and the perjury, and you do it because of Nixon and his shenanigans with the Watergate and all that kind of stuff. What about war? Hundreds of billions of dollars monumental things like Americans dying, monumental
Thousands
things like
of
people,
lives.
Thousands of lives all over the world.
Tens of thousands of lives.
Hundreds of billions of dollars of destruction, economic destruction. I mean, you look at stuff from everything from the COVID con to this current war, and what has happened is people are deciding to pick and choose. But see, I might pick, I hopefully would never do this, something to say, I know this violates the Constitution, but the president has to do this because of expediency. And you might say something else. And neither you nor I would never do this, I'm confident. But the fact of the matter is, who says me saying that is any more valuable than you saying it?
Well, saying it's the most valuable, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm telling you, Sam.
You see the hypocrisy and the facade in that, folks? It's insane. So constitutions matter, but they've got to matter in the hearts and minds of the people. There's got to be clear understanding of the principles and insistence on obedience to that supreme law. And if we let that slip for so-called justifiable reasons, we are betraying our country, and eventually it will be the demise of our country if we're not very careful. So President Trump literally last night delivered a nationally televised address focused on election security and declassified intelligence, he says. Now, he first, said, hey, we got to be in this war, got to do it. Then he basically went into the intelligence things about the elections and said they're fraud and Chinese manipulated our elections and everything else. President Trump gave a, quote, primetime White House address on election security. He calls for election reforms. He wants his, voter ID election legislation passed. It's disaster, in my opinion, in many ways for a variety of reasons. But at the end of the day, he basically released a bunch of documents. Now everybody's fact-checking him and saying, he's right, this, but he's wrong, but that. And, what they do is they admit everything about election fraud, but then they say, but yet there's no proof, and yet we haven't crossed that line. Everything's true that you say. We just haven't crossed any lines to election fraud. And now the debate's on before the midterms, Doctor. This, to me, again, is starting to become a red herring in the sense that we can argue about it all day, but if the courts won't take the proof and if you can't deliver the evidence, we can say, we even show that you prove election fraud can happen because we can hack a machine in court, and we prove it. And then they say, yeah, but you haven't proven that they have hacked it in real life. And then we prove it, and they're like, yeah, but that's just a limited case. And then Trump says, no, they manipulated the voter rolls. Here's the evidence. Then they say, well, it's proven that they got the data, but it isn't proven that they used the data in an election crisis. And we have this line that somehow the folks that want to prove election fraud can't cross. And somehow, no matter what happens, they can get so close and they have everything but the smoking gun, so to speak. And I think that this is intentional, Doctor.
Well, it is. And I've got a quotation that came to mind that applies not only in this particular instance about elections and proof and giving up this and that and the other until we erode everything, and the idea of our Constitution is important and so on and so forth. Here's a statement made by a guy by the name of Dr. A.A. Hodge. He was a theologian that talked about religion and education and so on and so forth. But this applies. You're going to have to kind of, make it fit in your mind a little bit. But here's what he said. It is capable of exact demonstration that if every party in the state has the right of excluding from public schools whatever he does not believe to be true, then he that believes most must give way to him that believes least, and he that believes least must give way to him that believes absolutely nothing, no matter how small a minority the atheists or agnostics may be. It is self-evident that on this scheme, if consistently and persistently carried out in all parts of the country, the United States system of national popular education will be the most efficient and widespread instrument for the propagation of atheism which the world has ever seen. So what we have is those that are believing the most are giving away to those that believe the least, and those that believe the least to those that believe nothing at all in all of these things. And they're saying, well, there's no scientific proof. Okay, so here we have Fauci up there. He is the science. Now we have these people that are saying, well, you haven't proven in court the elections are being stolen. But by golly, you know what? There's a whole bunch of evidence that it could be done, were it to be done, and we could solve that by closing some of those loopholes. All of these things that are at stake are somebody's waiting for some unequivocal Supreme Court decision or something, which they throw away anyway, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I mean, come on, people. They're very specific. And
if we haven't had election fraud to this date, which I believe we have, but if we haven't had it to this date, all these proofs that we say that it's possible means that it can and will happen if it already hasn't, unless we change the game. So I support changing the game. I just don't support the way we're going about it. So President Trump wants this, legislation passed where you have to have voter ID. What it really does is just strengthen a national ID card, which I reject. Whether you call it, a national ID card, whether you call it voter ID, whether you call it a Social Security card, whether you call it a real ID, no matter what you call it, I don't think the federal government has any authority to force us to have any federal ID of any kind, Doctor.
Yeah, papers. You say that the Gestapo coming through the train, or the Stasi, or the KGB on these old movies. I mean, we are at a point, but the problem is that the national government has no authority in this whatsoever. Limits and bounds, checks and balances, delegation of authority, all this kind of stuff is being overlooked again. Our Constitution's important. Go read it.
And what we want to say is set aside the Constitution. Election fraud demands immediacy. So on this immediacy idea, we're going to go ahead and toss out the rules and the guidelines and then wonder why things are going south. So there's President Trump's address. Everybody's trying to fact check it right now. We'll see where it goes, but right now they're just saying Donald makes these claims mostly true, but for the most part without evidence. And unless you cross that line and prove the evidence, we're just at a stalemate discussion on this thing as we approach the midterms. Finally, though, Congress, the House approved the daylight savings time bill. It stays in the spotlight, and so the House passed it. Now, what's interesting is the Senate passed a bill like this back in 22-23, and the House didn't take it up, so it failed. Now the House passed it. The question is, will the Senate take it up? Now, they want it to be daylight savings time that we solidify on and don't move around anymore. I support the idea not to move around, not to move backwards and forwards, but I personally think would be much, much better for a lot of reasons on standard time, but that's not being discussed right now. So do you think it'll pass? Do you think the Senate will get on it and we'll get that done? And do you want it to be done, Doctor?
Well, first of all, I do not want to change the clocks based upon government edicts. I want it to stay on standard time. That's what the celestial clock does. If you know how to tell time off of the North Star and the Big Dipper, you know it's standard time. But beyond that, here's some very real reasons to not do it the way they say. By the way, they did pass it in 74. It became very, very unpopular immediately. And they went back to these swapping clocks. Standardize, go forward. But here's the deal. With daylight savings time, here's a problem in the winter. The kids are all going to school in the dark. And the thing that made it really unpopular when they went back to it was there was a lot of kids getting injured and killed during the dark hours of the morning. And so, you could change the school hours to 9 o'clock in the morning and maybe avoid that problem. So if you're going to do it, let's change the school hours too. But I really believe...
Oh, let's just get rid of the government schools. Then you don't have to go to school and you don't have the problem at all. But anyway, we digress quickly.
You got that right, buddy.
We digress quickly. But the point we're getting at, in my mind, that I think is really important is that we believe standard time is the way to go. And I would love to not move the clocks around. But they're not even going down, in my mind, the right road here on this thing. And it sounds like, well, Sam, it's only an hour difference. Who cares? Either's fine. You can say that, but there's a lot of reasons that it's not the same. And if we really want to do it right, let's do it right. Let's go to standard time, and let's go ahead and move it. And then let's, adjust anything we need to from there. I don't know if they'll even pass it, though. I think the Senate's just so stuck on stupid. I don't know that it'll pass. And if it does, again, we'll be back right in the 74 scenario, won't we? With the way they're going about it.
Go with the celestial time that is in the heavens and has been from the beginning of time. Standardize on it. Quit swapping it around. Quit dinking around with everything you don't have any right to.
So Senate, we support it. We think you need to go get it done. But put your companion bill, say we pass it, but it's on standard time, not daylight savings time, and see if we can get Congress in the House to back that bill. And then let's get it passed and signed by the president. The sooner, the better, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being alongside with the ride. We're flat out of time. For Dr. Scott Bradley, freedomsrisingsun.com. I'm Sam Bushman. This is the one and only Liberty Roundtable Live. News the networks refuse to use Monday through Friday. Videos, audio. We spread the word promoting God, family, and country, and we do it without apology. Happy to have you along. God save our constitutional republic.